Hey, well, tonight I'm angry about COVID-19 testing, and I'm sure you're aware of the fact that this pandemic has been sweeping the globe and that we're all reacting to it, but the way that we're reacting is the issue. Let's talk about testing. So the first thing I want to show you is this is the number of tests that the US is conducting on a daily basis right now. We're at almost 1.5 million tests per day. What information are we getting from this test? What information do we think we're getting from the test? So let me take you back a little bit to January of 2020 when the virus was sequenced, and they found out that there were 3 fragments that we could identify that would determine if the virus was present in a sample or not. And you can see these genes of the virus, these 3 genes mentioned here, E, RDRP, and N. These are RNA sequences, and if all 3 of these sequences are present in a sample, then the virus, you would assume, is present. So what is the testing that we're doing today? Are we testing for these 3 fragments? No, we're not. We're only testing for one of the 3, and that's the first of the problems. Let me describe the second part of the problem to you. There's something called a CT count. And this CT count is a measure of the quantity of the virus that exists. In other words, if there is one fragment of the virus in 1/1,000,000th of a liter, that corresponds to a CT of 35, and that's considered to be about the limit for any kind of unreasonable even testing. We are now testing at CTs of 40. And you can see here in this New York Times article from September of 2020, where the New York Times itself points out that even though your coronavirus test might be positive, perhaps it shouldn't be. And they explore some of these issues. They have an interview with a virologist at the University of California who points out that any CT greater than 35 is completely unreliable and that a reasonable threshold is between 30 and 35. I will remind you that we are doing CTs today of 40 and not even testing for all 3 fragments, only testing for 1. These tests are completely invalid. We're getting huge amounts of false positives. The number of cases is nothing like the number that we are led to believe. Even though the number of tests continue to skyrocket, we need to understand what this test is that we're doing. We're testing for the presence of a virus. And just to summarize again, it was noticed in January of 2020 that it would require 3 components for this virus to be confirmed to exist in a sample. We are only testing for one of those 3. Not only that, we're magnifying the sample to such an extent that even if someone had a glancing exposure months ago or has recovered and they just have a fragment of the virus in their system, because it's being magnified millions and millions of times, that person will be a positive result, even though they are not positive and not sick. I would also remind you that historically, doctors have relied on evaluating patients based on their symptoms, and they do tests to confirm those symptoms. These days we do things completely reversed. We do the test first and then we start looking for symptoms. We are doing a lot of testing. We are finding a lot of positive results. These positive results are not giving us the information that we think we're getting from them. They are showing us that there are a large number of people who have some small fragment of the virus in their systems. It's not telling us how many people are actually sick. For us to be making economic decisions, lockdown decisions, government decisions, life-changing decisions based on these tests that we don't even understand is completely outrageous and ridiculous. If you understood how likely false positives were because of the flaws in these tests, you would be a lot less alarmed at the number of new cases. And I'll also point out that new cases are not new cases. They are just new tests. If the virus exists widely in the population, then the more tests you do, the more cases you will find. That doesn't mean these are new cases. It just means these are test results that are new. Let's understand what this testing is actually showing us. We don't. We think it shows a vast increase in the number of cases. It's not. It's a sloppy test, sloppily administered, and it's generating a huge amount of false positives. Now you should have some idea why. Please, let's start to wake up.